Well, our top focus story on Good Morning India is the crisis that is brewing in the Punjab Congress. Now, things escalated last evening with meetings that were held by both sides. Sources said that Chief Minister Captain Amarinder Singh is against the central leader's peace formula when Navjot Sidhu is elevated as the state chief. Each faction has been drawing up a list of supporting MLAs. That's what sources said. Now, what really transpired last evening? Well, remember, Navjot Sidhu is yet to be officially named as the state chief. Meanwhile, he held a meeting with 6 other MLAs, including cabinet ministers from the anti-Amarinder camp. Ahead of the cabinet reshuffle, some rebel ministers who complained about Captain Amarinder Singh to the High Command have hinted that if either of them is dropped from the cabinet, they will go for a mass resignation. Now, Captain Amarinder Singh is also holding meetings with party MLAs and MPs at his private farmhouse in Mohali. All these meetings took place late last evening, and Captain Amarinder Singh is yet not convinced with the formula that has been worked out by New Delhi, which is essentially elevating Navjot Sidhu to the position of the Congress chief in the state. Let's go right across to Sunil Prabhu, who's been tracking the details of this story. Sunil, it does appear that Captain Amarinder Singh is not convinced of Navjot Sidhu's elevations. There have been, late night meetings that have been held on both sides. What's the latest that you can tell us?
Well, I think the Congress president was briefed by Captain Amarinder's old Doon School friend, Mr. Kamal Nath, where very categorically it was explained to Mrs. Gandhi that Captain Amarinder has issues about Mr. Sidhu's elevation. The fact that if he does get elevated, it's okay, there's no problem about it. But you must have a PCC chief who knows not only the workers, but also the leaders in the district. And that's something that is a cause of concern. Having said that, they have to definitely find a place for Mr. Sidhu. There's no doubt about the fact that he is a young leader. He is a crowd puller, he is a good orator, and there are many pluses that are required and he needs to be put on board. How they go about it, there have been people who have been unhappy with Captain Amarinder. Of course, what has already been stated earlier is that Captain Amarinder will continue to lead the party as the Chief Minister in the coming assembly elections. But as we have seen over the last, if I may be permitted to say now, over 2 months, this has cost the party dearly. Every day of delay, every hour of delay has really affected the Congress party to a great extent. And that's the reason why we're seeing the two camps reinforcing instead of having a compromise formula and hoping for a solution at the earliest. So we'll have to wait and see. Mrs. Gandhi is abreast of the entire matter. And hopefully in the next few days, if not today or tomorrow, a decision will be taken in this regard.
All right, Sunil, so that's of course, very important what you're pointing out, that a lot of time has actually gone by and a quick decision is in fact imperative, in order to prevent further damage as far as the Punjab Congress is concerned. Let's also get an update from my colleague Mohammad Ghazali. He's been tracking the details of this story very closely as well. Ghazali, we're given to understand that there were late night meetings conducted on both sides, meeting with MLAs and MPs, of course, trying to lobby support. What more can you tell us about the late night meetings and what are you picking up in terms of what's likely to now happen?
See, it all went wrong once Harish Rawat made that statement to the media that along these lines changes will be made, that Sidhu will be the president of Punjab Congress Pradesh Committee. So this sort of upset Amarinder Singh and his loyalists, that suddenly when everything was going by the plan and High Command had to announce it, or whatever decision was to be made or was to be announced was by the High Command, then how come Harish Rawat made this announcement? And perhaps that upset Captain Amarinder Singh as well, because Sidhu's supporters started putting up hoardings and posters that he has been announced as a state president. And now this is interesting that this was the first time that the rebel ministers and MLAs have got in touch publicly with Navjot Sidhu, or we can say that Navjot Sidhu for the first time has got in touch with the rebel MLAs, led a meeting there. So certainly we can say that knives are out, because both the leaders simultaneously held parallel meetings. And now for this, Mr. Harish Rawat will be coming to Chandigarh today. He is supposed to come in here and convince Amarinder, tell him that this is exactly what the High Command had decided, and he will try to pacify, because Amarinder Singh is a very senior leader. The party has always reiterated that Amarinder Singh will be the face of the party, or a CM face, and in no way he would like to be undermined by a new entrant in the party like Navjot Sidhu. So party high command will certainly back Navjot Sidhu. That is first thing which is very clear. And second, that both the leaders are now trying to impress the high command to show that what clout they have in the party, who all backs them in the party, because Navjot Sidhu was being seen as a lone wolf sort of leader who doesn't have a backing in the party.
All right, so very interesting developments as far as the Punjab Congress crisis is concerned. The Chief Minister meeting with loyalists and ministers last evening. Meanwhile, Navjot Sidhu meeting with the anti-Amarinder camp, so to speak. This, of course, as the captain has had a bit of a rethink on New Delhi's formula to broker peace, which was essentially the elevation of Navjot Sidhu to the post of the Congress chief in Punjab. We're going to continue to track the details of this story. Sunil and Ghazali will, of course, continue to bring us the very latest. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Well, on to the other big story that we're tracking. The Supreme Court yesterday questioned the Sedition Law, calling it colonial, as it observed that the British-era law holds enormous power for misuse. The bench also asked whether it was still necessary after 75 years of independence. Meanwhile, the Haryana police have invoked sedition charges against a group of protesting farmers who allegedly attacked and damaged the official vehicle of the Haryana Deputy Speaker. 100 people have been booked.
Hundred farmers booked for sedition for allegedly attacking the car of the Haryana Deputy Speaker. The first time in their almost 7-month protest against the farm laws that this charge has been used. Today came strong observations by the Chief Justice of India, N.V. Ramana, questioning the government why the British-era sedition law should not be scrapped. Hearing petitions from the Editors Guild of India and others challenging its validity, the court asked the centre, is the law still necessary in our country after 75 years of independence? It is a colonial law used by the British to silence Gandhi and others. Our concern is misuse of the law and threat to functioning of institutions. Also, no accountability on the part of the executive. If police wants to fix someone, they invoke sedition law. And people are scared. Chief Justice asked the government's top lawyer, government is repealing a number of old laws. Why is the government not looking into this law? The Chief Justice said, instead of cutting wood, the carpenter is cutting the forest itself. That's the effect of this law. The Attorney General replied, the law need not be struck down. Only some guidelines be set out so that the section meets its legal purpose. The Chief Justice shot back, if some party does not want to hear the voice of other party, they may use this law and implicate others, and it is a serious question for individuals. We will examine the law.
The Honorable Supreme Court's agreeing to examine the sedition law today is heartening, certainly to me as petitioner, but also to others who value democratic dissent and fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution.
The National Crime Records Bureau data is in sync with the Chief Justice of India's remarks on conviction under sedition law. The number of sedition cases have increased by over 160% from 2016 to 2019. But the rate of conviction dropped to 3.3% in 2019 from 33.3% in 2016. Among those recently charged with sedition include filmmakers, a student activist, MP Shashi Tharoor, journalist Rajdeep Sardesai, Mrinal Pandey, Vinod Dua and Siddiq Kappan, who's been in UP jail for over 9 months with no bail or trial in sight.
നിയമത്തിലല്ല തെറ്റ് നിരപരാധികളായ മനുഷ്യരുടെ മേൽ ജയിലിൽ തളക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള നിയമങ്ങൾ ദുരുപയോഗം ചെയ്യപ്പെടുന്നതാണ് പ്രശ്നം. എങ്ങനെയുള്ള വാർത്തകൾ വരുന്നതിൽ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്.
Few other petitions filed by journalists challenging the sedition law are pending before a different bench. Now, all these petitions will be heard by the Chief Justice bench soon. Chief Justice's strong observations is a message to the government that this law is not needed anymore. In New Delhi, Arunachalam Vaidyanathan, NDTV.
Well, shifting focus to COVID now, a worrying sign for India as the active cases went up by 2,095 on Thursday. Now, while it may not seem like much, this is the highest ever rise in active cases that India has seen in over 2 months. In fact, since mid-May, active cases have risen only twice. Of course, this is only on one particular day, and that the 7-day average continues to dip. But any more frequent rises in the days ahead could change all of that, including the 7-day average also going up. Now, the World Health Organization has said that globally we are now witnessing the start of a third wave. Now, this graphic on our screens right now from our world data shows this very clearly. At least 2 countries, Brazil and UK, have reported more cases than India in the last 24 hours, indicating the onset of a third wave. But what is the situation here in India? Well, the situation in India is that the R factor, the rate at which the virus spreads, the reproduction rate is rising, but vaccinations per day are falling. The increasing R factor, reproduction rate, or the number of people who can be infected by one person who tests positive for COVID, particularly in the state of Maharashtra and Kerala, have triggered concerns of a renewed wave of COVID in these states, one that could fuel a national spike and trigger a third wave. Now, coupled with this is, of course, India's faltering vaccination rate. India is currently vaccinating an average of 33 lakh people a day, while the target is supposed to be about 88 lakh vaccinations a day. This in order to vaccinate at least 60% of our population by the end of the year. Now, NDTV's Vishnu Shom spoke with Dr. Samiran Panda, the head of Epidemiology and Communicable Disease Division of the Indian Council of Medical Research and COVID-19 third wave. And he said that it would be prudent to assume that a third wave is going to hit India by the end of August, but it's not likely to be as intense as the second wave.
Is India headed for a third wave of COVID?
Well, a third wave is possible, but that does not mean that it would be as severe as the second wave. So yes, given the information that we have in terms of the vulnerability of the Indians, in terms of their past experiences or exposure with the multiple waves of SARS-CoV-2 infection, and then of course the vaccination is also going on, taking all these things together and the existing or the residual vulnerability, it will be prudent to assume that there will be a third wave, but that does not or should not necessarily make us think that it's going to be as severe as the second wave.
Now, one of the big questions that's on everyone's mind is when schools will be allowed to open. Now, while several states have taken decisions on the reopening of schools, the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal made it clear yesterday. He said that schools in Delhi won't open, at least for now.
जो इंटरनेशनली भी ट्रेंड देख रहे हैं कि थर्ड वेव आएगी, तो जब तक वैक्सीनेशन प्रोसेस कंप्लीट नहीं हो जाता, हम अभी बच्चों के साथ रिस्क नहीं लेना चाहेंगे.
In Mumbai, daily cases this week have seen an uptick, leading to a rise in the number of buildings that are being sealed as a result of spike in cases. Elsewhere in the state as well, there are 9 districts, hotspots, that have been identified where the positivity rate is higher than the manageable 5%.
Crowds are back in Mumbai, even though it hasn't fully reopened. Worryingly, cases have seen an uptick, enough for more buildings to be sealed. On Monday and Tuesday, there were below 500 cases, but 635 cases on Wednesday. The number of buildings sealed by officials went up from 65 on Tuesday to 75 on Wednesday. BMC says more opening up of economy, reverse migration and mobility are the reasons cases are still high, although the positivity is still below 2%.
As of now, there is nothing to worry, but in case it goes beyond 2 or beyond 5 to say 2, if you ask me to say so. So in that case, it may be an alarming situation.
But in the rest of the state, There are 10 districts which have a positivity above the state's average, most of them above the manageable level of 5%. These districts account for 92% of the active cases.
करीबन जो 1 लाख के दरमियान हमारे जो एक्टिव केसेस है उसमें 8% 26 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में है और 10% 92 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में है। सभी आंकड़ों पर नज़र रखे हुए हमें जहां रिलैक्सेशन देना है, कहां रिलैक्सेशन नहीं देना है, इसके बारे में माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी को हम इनपुट्स देते रहते हैं।
The increased mobility and lesser regards for COVID protocols is like giving an invitation for third wave. Experts have already warned about a third wave, and hence Maharashtra government is also not in a mood right now to provide any further relaxations. In Mumbai with camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, this is Purva Chitnis for NDTV.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Modi visited his parliamentary constituency of Varanasi yesterday and inaugurated multi-crore projects. He also praised the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister's handling of the COVID-19 crisis in the state, saying it was unparalleled.
तो जोरदार तालियों के साथ प्रधानमंत्री जी का स्वागत किया जा रहा है।
हर हर महादेव।
The formal beginning of the BJP's big UP poll journey, 6 months ahead of the prestigious state elections.
सभी लोगन के प्रणाम।
The PM was on his first visit to his Lok Sabha constituency Varanasi in over 8 months, first time after the deadly COVID pandemic killed thousands in UP. In his constituency alone, the queues at cremation sites and hospitals spoke volumes of the human suffering. The PM had to dispatch trusted aide A.K. Sharma to manage affairs. The rest of UP saw horrifying scenes of floating corpses in rivers, medicine and oxygen shortage. 3 months later, the Prime Minister could now be seen putting all of that behind and praised the Chief Minister for what he feels was exemplary handling of the situation.
देश का सबसे बड़ा प्रदेश जिसकी आबादी दुनिया के दर्जनों बड़े-बड़े देशों से भी ज्यादा हो, वहां कोरोना की दूसरी वेव को जिस तरह यूपी ने संभाला वो अभूतपूर्व है।
Reactions came in to the Prime Minister's praise of the CM's handling.
मेरे समय तो इतनी बुरी हालत स्थिति थी जैसे लगता है कि प्रशासन न शासन किसी का अंकुश ही नहीं है, न डॉक्टरों पर, न अस्पतालों में, न मरीज का कोई सहयोग नहीं हो रहा था। उसी कार्यकाल में मेरी वाइफ भी कोविड में एक्सपायर भी हो गई। मैं चिल्लाता रहा, डॉक्टरों से बोलता था, लेकिन कोई कहीं से नहीं सहयोग मिला।
सच्चाई ये है कि कोविड में बिल्कुल भी कोई सुविधा नहीं मिली। जो लोगों को कोविड होता था वो लोग डर के मारे अपना छिप जाते थे, न कोई टेस्ट, न कोई दवा, न कोई डॉक्टर, बहुत ही परेशानी हुई।
Modi unveiled a series of development projects in his constituency, the Rudraksh Convention Centre, upgradation of the BHU hospital, even the Ro-Ro ferry service.
आज यूपी में कानून का राज है, माफिया राज और आतंकवाद जो कभी बेकाबू हो रहे थे, उन पर अब कानून का शिकंजा है।
Taking a cue, BJP party leaders hit election mode. Office bearers of the BJP met today at the party office in Lucknow on poll strategy. The working committee of the BJP's UP wing will now meet on Friday. National President JP Nadda will be addressing the gathering virtually, with the Chief Minister delivering the closing address. The opposition, which so far has been largely dormant regarding elections, insists this won't alter people's minds.
गंगा मैया के क्या हाल हैं, गंगा का किनारा कैसा है, गंगा के तटों पर किस तरीके से कोरोना काल में लाशें दफनाई गईं, फिर उनका कफन नोचा गया, उस पर भी प्रधानमंत्री जी बात करेंगे।
UP goes to polls early next year, and a conscious attempt is being made by the BJP to change the narrative. A series of developmental projects will be inaugurated and unveiled in the next 100 days. But the plan also includes bringing in the discourse around a population control bill.
बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद।
Bureau Report, NDTV.
आपको हमारे प्रणाम।
Now, the Chief Justice of India has taken so motor cognizance of the delay on the part of Uttar Pradesh authorities in releasing 13 prisoners who were granted bail on the 8th of July. The convicts were juveniles at the time of offence and have been lodged in the Agra Central Jail for periods ranging from around 14 to 22 years in a murder case. The 13 convicts had approached the top court claiming that their detention was illegal, and there were clear orders passed by the Juvenile Justice Board with regard to each of them at various intervals between February 2017 and March 2021, declaring them to be juveniles at the time of murder. On the 8th of July, the Supreme Court had ordered their release on interim bail while granting time to the Uttar Pradesh government to verify the facts about their continued stay in jail despite orders establishing that they were juveniles. Well, more than 20 lakh WhatsApp accounts have been banned between the 15th of May and the 15th of June in India to prevent online abuse and keep users safe. This is what the Facebook-owned instant messaging platform said on Thursday in its monthly compliance report. Now, the report is interesting because this is a report that's now mandated under the country's new IT rules, and it has to list the details of actions that are taken by the social media platform and communication platform like WhatsApp and Twitter. WhatsApp has filed a legal complaint, however, remember, against the Indian government in the Delhi High Court, seeking to block regulations that come into effect last month. But with nearly 40 crore users in India, the company says that it will continue to engage with the government of India on practical solutions to keep people safe. Welcome back. Waterlogging is being reported in several parts of Mumbai as rain continues to lash the city. The regional Met Department has in fact said that there is a possibility of light to moderate rain in the city and suburbs, with even a possibility of heavy rainfall at isolated places for the next 24 hours. So it's already been raining through the course of the night, as a result of which you can see those waterlogging pictures that we're getting from King Circle. Waterlogging also reported in several other low-lying areas. We're also learning that trains are delayed by 20 to 25 minutes in several areas. The harbour line is also running late. This, of course, according to the Central Railways at the moment. Let's go right across to Purva Chitnis tracking the details of this story. Purva, heavy rainfall in certain parts of Mumbai. It's been raining almost through the course of the night, and as a result of which all familiar scenes of waterlogging being reported in several parts.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it has been raining almost all through night, and around 4 o'clock is when there was high tide, and that is the reason why you could see those pictures of waterlogging in different low-lying areas of Mumbai during high tides. The gates are closed, and that is why the water is not drained out to the sea, and that is the reason you see that if at all it rains heavily during the period of high tide, that's when the low-lying areas are always waterlogged, and that's exactly as what has happened. And the good part is, however, is that around 9:30 is when it's low tide, so we can expect that water which is logged almost in all low-lying areas that can be drained out. In the next 3 to 4 hours, however, are going to be crucial. How it's going to rain, that is something is going to be very crucial, because the nowcast of the IMD suggests that there will be a moderate to heavy spell in isolated areas. So that the next 3 to 4 hours are going to be crucial. But these are also the hours when Mumbaikars would want to go to their offices, and we've seen that how Mumbaikars are always been. Right now, they are not able to get to their offices even in normal courses, and they have to wait for like 2 to 3 hours for buses. So with this waterlogging in low-lying areas, there could be a lot of traffic diversions which could take place. And that is the reason Mumbaikars who want to reach to their offices, they will be delayed, because those who, the essential services, people who work at essential services, they take the local trains. Now, even as far as the local trains are concerned, then the harbour line, which, is a harbour and central line, which has stations like Kurla and Sion. These are the low-lying areas, and that is where the water is always locked at the tracks. So these central line and harbour lines are always delayed, or sometimes even stop for hours. So the next 3 to 4 hours are going to be crucial, how it's going to rain is something that we need to keep a track on. But also the good part is that it is also a low tide right now, so we can expect the water which has been locked already in the low-lying areas can be drained out.
All right, thanks Purva for joining us with that update from Mumbai. So waterlogging reported in several parts. Met Department warns that rainfall could continue for the next 24 hours, even heavy rainfall in certain parts. But one can of course expect traffic disruptions as a result of those pictures that you're seeing. Trains already running 20 to 25 minutes late. We'll continue to get you all the very latest from Mumbai, but let's shift our focus to the other big story that we're tracking today. Now, a majority of foreign students studying in Georgia's higher education institutions come from India, and Indian students who came back home during the course of the pandemic this year in January and February are now pretty much stranded back home, with Georgia stating that the rules for fully vaccinated Indians are different from the rest of the world. And irrespective of your vaccine status, all travellers have to undergo mandatory 14-day institutional quarantine. Over 250 students have been affected, and 2 of these students join us. Now, the reason that the students are so upset is because they are in all likelihood going to be missing their final semester exams that are taking place on campus in August. So that's the latest update. We have Muhammad Azim, MBBS 4th semester student, joining us. We also have Jaren Xavier Polakal, also an MBBS 4th semester student, joining us. Both these students are from India, one living in Maharashtra, one in Uttar Pradesh, and can't make their way back to Georgia for, of course, these reasons. Jaren, if I can come to you first, what really have universities in Georgia told you?
So basically we got a mail from the university stating that we have a semester end exam on campus. So there are certain regulations laid out by the Georgian government, as we have, like, regardless of being vaccinated or not, we have to undergo quarantine, and you have to be there for 14 days. And you can only travel via direct charter flights. You can't have transits. So there should be a flight directly from India to Georgia. Otherwise, you won't be allowed to enter the borders. This is what they have been saying. And we have been trying to convey that there are no flights, but they are very adamant in conducting their exams on campus.
All right. So exams are taking place on campus. And what the universities are saying is that you can't fly via a commercial airline, take a hopping flight. You have to take a chartered flight. But the other interesting thing here, Muhammad Azim, if you want to come in, is that even though you've been given 2 doses of the vaccine, fully vaccinated students still have to undergo mandatory quarantine, and these rules apply only to Indian students?
Yes, so I would like to say that just because maybe the second wave has taken toll, it was at the peak in India, so the rules have been changed because before the second wave the rules were different. The citizens, irrespective of the citizenship, regardless of the citizenship, like even Indians, were allowed via the commercial flights. But as the second wave took toll in India, the rules were changed. I don't know by the other countries, but Georgia specifically, they said that regardless of your citizenship, if you're traveling from India, you have to undergo a mandatory 14-day quarantine and you have to come via a charter flight. And this rule implies it confines only to the Indians, only the travelers who are traveling from India.
Right. What has the university said, Jaren, in terms of these offline exams? Now, we know that exams are happening on campus in Georgia. Both of you are studying in Tbilisi. Have there been any special arrangements made for students who can't appear for these exams physically?
No. What they have been saying that you are proceeding into a higher semester. So you have to give your exams on campus, because the semester we are going to, like now we are going to the 5th semester. So it's a clinical semester. So you have to clear your pre-clinical courses on campus, and then you can go forward with the next semester. So we have tried contacting both of the embassies, the Indian embassy in Georgia and the Georgian embassy in Armenia. But all they say is no, that like nothing has been confirmed. We don't know when we are going to get the confirmation. We don't know when are we going to get the flight. This is what we are hearing from past 2 months.
And Mohammed, what about what happens if you don't appear for these exams? Will there be a special provision made for Indian students to perhaps write these exams at a later date? What are universities telling you? Because you surely can't miss your final semester exams that are going to be happening in the end of August, because different rules apply to Indian students.
So basically, I would like to emphasize that Georgian government, in the wake of this pandemic, Georgian government has made a special rule for the Indian students, that the students who are from India, who hold the citizenship from India, who are stuck in India, can remotely continue their semester. But for now, the university is not implying upon this, either because the university is thinking about the further clinical things and all. But the university is saying that you have to give the exams on campus, and if you don't appear for the exams, because they have given the final date, the last date for to appear for the exams would be in the 3rd week of August, and like if you don't appear for the exams in the said period of time, they said they would fail us for the semester.
Right. In fact, I want to just take that graphic up full screen, because those are actually the travel rules, and it says very clearly that irrespective of the vaccination status of Indians, a 14-day mandatory quarantine is mandated. So irrespective of which vaccine you've got and whether you've got 1 or 2 doses, if you are coming from India, then you have to mandatorily quarantine for 14 days. Furthermore, students have been told that they can't take hopping flights. So they can't come via another country. They have to take charter flights from India and fly into Tbilisi. And as you've heard from both Jaren and Mohammed, this is of course inconvenienced Indian students who are now likely to miss their final semester exams. Thanks so much, both of you, for joining us, and we sincerely hope that there is a resolution to this problem, because one sincerely hopes that Indian students don't have to miss out on these final semester exams, and you can in fact go back or write those exams virtually. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right, with that, we're going to slip into a very short break with more news coming up on the other side. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning India. I'm Rishika Barwa. Top focus story continues to remain the crisis in the Punjab Congress, which escalated last evening with meetings that were held by both sides. Sources said that Chief Minister Captain Amarinder Singh is against the central leader's peace formula when Navjot Sidhu is to be elevated as the state Congress chief. Each faction is drawing up its own list of supporting and dissenting MLAs. Now, Navjot Sidhu is yet to be officially announced as the new state chief. He held meetings with 6 MLAs, including 2 cabinet ministers from the anti-Amarinder camp. Now, ahead of the cabinet reshuffle, some rebel MLAs who complained about Amarinder Singh to the High Command have hinted that if either of them is dropped from the cabinet, then they will go for a mass resignation. Captain Amarinder Singh also held meetings last evening with party MLAs and MPs at his private farmhouse in Mohali. And Captain Amarinder Singh has yet not convinced with Navjot Sidhu's elevation. That's what we're learning from sources. My colleagues Sunil Prabhu and Mohammad Ghazali are tracking the details of this big political story from New Delhi and of course from Punjab. Sunil sent us this report this morning.
Well, I think the Congress president was briefed by Ms. Captain Amarinder's old Doon School friend, Mr. Kamal Nath, where very categorically it was explained to Mrs. Gandhi that Captain Amarinder has issues about Mr. Sidhu's elevation. The fact that if he does get elevated, it's okay, there's no problem about it, but you must have a PCC chief who knows not only the workers but also the leaders in the district, and that's something that is a cause of concern. Having said that, they have to definitely find a place for Mr. Sidhu. There's no doubt about the fact that he is a young leader, he is a crowd puller, he is a good orator, and there are many pluses that are required and he needs to be put on board. How they go about it, there have been people who have been unhappy with Captain Amarinder. Of course, what has already been stated earlier is that Captain Amarinder will continue to lead the party as the Chief Minister. in the coming assembly elections. But as we've seen over the last, if I may be permitted to say now, over 2 months, this has cost the party dearly. Every day of delay, every hour of delay has really affected the Congress party to a great extent, and that's the reason why we're seeing the two camps reinforcing instead of having a compromise formula and hoping for a solution at the earliest. So we'll have to wait and see. Mrs. Gandhi is abreast of the entire matter, and hopefully in the next few days, if not today or tomorrow, a decision will be taken in this regard.
All right, let's also go across to my colleague Mohammad Ghazali, who's been tracking the details of this story. Ghazali, what's the latest? We know that there were meetings that were held on both sides yesterday that went late into the night. What can we expect to see happen today?
See, I'll tell you why this entire discord happened yesterday itself, because since morning it was Mr. Rawat who issued this statement, speaking to some media people in the morning, that Sidhu will be the president, there will be 2 other working presidents, and this is exactly the formula around which the High Command is deliberating upon. But by evening, when Sidhu's supporters put up hoardings, they started distributing sweets. That statement certainly upset Captain Amarinder Singh, after which he started raising the issue that he is not happy with the latest development, and to why all this announcement was being made by Harish Rawat, why High Command is not announcing anything, and they were taken aback. So that is why Mr. Rawat had to apologize to Mr. Amarinder before meeting Sonia Gandhi, and it is expected that today Mr. Rawat will come to Chandigarh and will try to pacify Mr. Captain Amarinder Singh regarding this. But what is more significant is that Captain Amarinder Singh is not facing rebellion only from Navjot Sidhu, but there are other cabinet ministers who in the last couple of months have raised their voices against Captain Amarinder Singh. Now Sidhu for the first time had openly met these rebel cabinet ministers and certain MLAs, and these ministers and MLAs at one point of time were very close confidant of Captain Amarinder Singh. So somewhere when Mr. Amarinder Singh also held a meeting yesterday, it was a show of his strength to the party, to the High Command, showing that they have numbers or they have clout or influence within the party. Now one point which Sunil mentioned is very important, that though the High Command agreed and they have agreed upon to elevate Sidhu as state president, but what about the grassroots workers, say the district presidents in each district? Will they sort of align with Navjot Sidhu? Because Amarinder has always been saying that Sidhu is a new entrant into Congress. He doesn't know the working culture as of now. There are many senior members around. So will district leaders or will foot soldiers also accompany Sidhu? Will this resolve the crisis within Congress party if Sidhu is elevated as state president, or will it multiply their problems? This is exactly why we are hearing that Sidhu is also reaching Delhi today to meet the party High Command, while Harish Rawat will be in Chandigarh to meet Amarinder and apprise him of why the High Command is backing Navjot Sidhu and why both the leaders are essential for the party ahead of the polls.
All right, so those are interesting developments, Ghazali, that you're reporting on. Navjot Sidhu heading to the national capital to meet presumably with the top brass, and Harish Rawat, the Congress's Punjab in charge, in fact in Chandigarh to meet with Amarinder Singh. Clearly the formula that's so far believed to have been the solution, or the formula to broker peace, is really not cut ice, not with the Chief Minister at least. We have with us on the broadcast Hardeep Kingra, the Chief Media panelist and spokesperson of the Punjab Congress. PKD Nambiar, our political analyst whose views lean towards the BJP, is also with us. Mr. Kingra, to you first, what's really happening? Because it does appear that the Congress's crisis in Punjab continues, and whatever formula was worked out by New Delhi hasn't cut ice, at least not with the Chief Minister.
Ruchika, the Congress is a disciplined force. And let me tell you that we appreciate and we take the dissenting views within the party in a sporting spirit, provided there is a proviso that they are not backed or prompted by some other political dispensation in the country. If somebody within the Congress is having some divergent views, Congress is the only party in the country. Not that you say a word that you are suspended for 6 years, as it is happening in many other parties in the country. So Congress take the views very sportingly of any dissent within the party, but if it is backed by some other political party or prompted on the or it is the view is aired on the prompting of some other political party, then certainly Congress will take it very heavily, and we will go against such a person.
Are you suggesting that this is dissent that is being sponsored by another political party, and that this is not just, you know, disgruntlement within your own party?
No, this is just because some people have a divergent view within the party. This is not at all prompted by any political party in Punjab or at national level. But at the same time, once a decision will be taken by the Congress High Command, I repeat it again, once a decision is taken by the party High Command, everyone or every congressman will fall in place, and they will fall in line. Nobody is going to disagree with any decision taken by the High Command, the Congress President Sonia Ji, or the High Command in general.
But Mr. Kingra, it does appear that the party High Command worked out a formula to broker peace, elevating Navjot Sidhu to the post of Congress chief in the state, Amarinder Singh to continue to be the chief ministerial face going into the election. But that formula doesn't appear to have been accepted.
So, Chika, this is the view of the press or the media that the formula has been worked out. The work is still going on. If you say that the formula has been worked out, it should have been announced by now.
Okay.
So
it's work in progress. The formula hasn't been worked out.
Yes, the working is already going on, and the decision is yet to be taken. Otherwise, announcement of a decision should not take that much time. So that means some more inputs are falling into place, and the decision will be taken by the High Command, and every congressman in Punjab will fall in line with that decision. There is no possibility of anybody dissenting after the decision is taken by the National High Command.
Okay.
Or the
in which case the other important question, PKD Nambiar, is why is it taking so long? And you know, is this infighting within the Congress that has been festering for a long period of time going to hurt the interest of the party going into the polls?
Did you ask me?
A party which do not even have a national president, a full-time national president for years together now. A party which has lost its ground in the 90% of the country and only remaining in 2 or 3 states in the ruling. And even in those places, it is not about just Punjab. Look at what is happening in, the same is happening in Rajasthan between Gehlot and Sachin Pilot. So the Congress challenge is not 1 or 2, Rishika, it is a manifold. It is a leadership crisis. It is an aspiration of leaders like Mr. Kingra would like to do something tomorrow if there is no aspirational leadership is available in front of them. Now today we all talk about High Command, High Command, High Command. Who is this High Command? We don't know. Is that one Gandhi or is it 3 Gandhis put together in the High Command? Nobody knows. That all the leaders, if a Sidhu or an Amarinder wanted to have even an audience with these Gandhis, it may take sometimes a couple of days, couple of weeks to even get an audience. When was the last time you heard from the Congress chief talking about an issue and she's forthcoming and discussing it in the public domain and solving it? What is this whole challenge is all about? The challenge is about the power circle between 2 people. And within the party, both wanted to have a share of power. I think Congress is in a crisis, and it is just a matter of time that it vanishes from the country. And I feel that is not good for the country. It's a grand old party. We really require a national opposition. And I request the Gandhis to leave the kursi and give it to somebody. Maybe Amarinder Singh, maybe a Gehlot, maybe a Sachin Pilot, somebody. Let those people to run the party. Not to outsource to Prashant Kishore. You can't, politics is not outsourced. Politics cannot be outsourced. Politics is a 365 days, 24/7 activity. It does not happen on Twitter.
Well, political negotiations, deliberations continue. We'll continue to get you the very latest in terms of what's happening both in Chandigarh and here in Delhi. Thank you both very much for joining us this morning. Welcome back. The big story that we're tracking from Mumbai. Several low-lying areas in Mumbai are waterlogged after spells of heavy rain. Trains on the Central Railway have been delayed. Some buses have been diverted. Traffic snarls are being seen in several parts. So those, of course, are pictures of flooding and waterlogging that are being reported across low-lying areas in Mumbai after incessant rains overnight. Let's get in and update from my colleague Sunil Singh, who's joining us live at the moment. Sunil, where are you and what more can you tell us about the situation on the ground?
देखिए, मैं मालाड में एसबी रोड पर हूँ और आप देख सकती हैं कि किस तरह से मेरे पीछे आपको दिखाई पड़ रहा होगा कि सड़कें जो हैं वो पानी से लबालब है और इस पानी के बीच में से ही जो वाहन है उन्हें वहां से गुजरना पड़ रहा है। और ये आलम सिर्फ यहाँ इस मालाड का नहीं है, बल्कि आज मुंबई में सभी जगहों पर यही स्थिति यहाँ पर बनी हुई है। और चाहे वो दादर का हिंदमाता हो, सायन, सिंह सर्कल, गांधी मार्केट, चेंबूर, चुना भट्टी, कुर्ला, सांता क्रूज का वकोला इलाका हो या फिर अंधेरी सबवे, मालाड सबवे, दहीसर, बोरीवली, सभी जगहों पर यही स्थिति है। मालाड, मालौड़ी में भी एक जगहों पर जो सड़कें लबालब हो चुकी हैं, कई निचले इलाके हैं वहाँ पर पानी इस कदर भर चुका है कि लोगों के मकानों में पानी जा चुका है। और मैं थोड़ा सा आपको कैमरा अगर करके आपको दिखाऊं उस तरफ, तो आपको ये असल स्थिति यहाँ पर फिलहाल दिखाई पड़ेगी। देखिए किस तरह से पानी के बीच में से होकर गाड़ियों को यहाँ से गुजरना पड़ रहा है। हल्का सा अभी थोड़ी सी बारिश कम हुई है, लेकिन जिस तरह से रात भर लगातार बारिश हुई है, सुबह से तेज बारिश हो रही है मुंबई में जगह जगहों पर। नतीजा ये है कि हर जगह पानी भर चुका है। मुंबई की जो मध्य और हार्बर लाइन है लोकल की, उसे भी चुना भट्टी, कुर्ला के पास पटरियों पर पानी भरने की वजह से बंद करना पड़ा है। तो स्थिति बहुत ही अच्छी नहीं है फिलहाल मुंबई में, गंभीर स्थिति है। और ये आलम तब है जबकि इस समय लो टाइड का वक्त है। आज हाई टाइड का जो वक्त है वो शाम को 4:11 के करीब है, जबकि 4.08 मीटर की लहरें उठेगी। तब अगर इसी तरह से आलम रहा तो क्या होगी, इस बात को लेकर चिंता है। और दूसरा एक बड़ा सवाल बात है कि ये जो हम जहाँ पर खड़े हैं, इसी पे पिछले इसी साल लगभग लाखों रुपए खर्च करके नाला बनाया गया है और पानी निकासी की काफी काम किया गया है, लेकिन फिर भी स्थिति है कि उसका कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ। और यही आलम चाहे जितने भी खबरें हो, जहाँ भी लोला इलाके हैं वहाँ पर बड़े बड़े मोटर पंप लगाए गए हैं, टंकियाँ बनाई गई नई तरीके पानी स्टोर कर ताकि बाद में उसे पंप किया जा सके, लेकिन सारी व्यवस्थाएं फेल हो जाती हैं। अगर मुंबई में लगातार तेज बारिश होती रहे और समुद्र में हाई टाइड हो तो सब कुछ बेकार हो जाता है सारे निजाम, और नतीजा मुंबईकरों को इस तरह की मुसीबत झेलनी पड़ती है। ये सड़क आप देख पा रही हैं, सड़क पर पानी यहाँ पर भरा हुआ है, ये फुटपाथ है और यहाँ पर आपको दिखाई पड़ेगा कि ये दुकानें हैं। दुकानों में भी थोड़ी देर में अगर इस तरह बारिश चलती रही तो पानी भरना शुरू हो जाएगा, क्योंकि पानी जो है फुटपाथ जो है सड़क के और फुटपाथ से होते हुए अब इस शॉपिंग कॉम्प्लेक्स है उस तरफ भी पहुंच चुका है।
All right, Sunil Singh there reporting from Malad, low-lying area in Mumbai, where not just the roads that have been flooded, but even the neighbouring shops have water that has in fact entered. Thanks so much, Sunil, for joining us with the very latest. Let's now go across to Divya, who's been tracking the monsoons. Divya, those are pictures all too familiar from Mumbai. It's rained incessantly overnight, but what's the forecast looking like for the city?
Well, Rishika, over 250 millimeters of rainfall has been recorded as far as Santa Cruz area is concerned. As far as Colaba is concerned, about 12 millimeters. So there's a huge difference as far as areas in Mumbai are concerned. Overnight showers have led to waterlogging in several parts, like we've seen. Of course, this has happened this morning, but over the next 2 to 3 hours, we're going to see more showers coming in, and that's because of the intense cloud cover that we're seeing over Mumbai as well as Thane. As far as the forecast is concerned, we're expecting heavy showers in the course of the day. There's an amber alert warning for parts of Mumbai over not just today but also tomorrow. So heavy downpour expected in areas of Mumbai, its suburbs, as well as Thane, along with Raigad and Sindhu Durg as well. And those heavy showers will be in parts of Konkan and Goa. Like I mentioned, there is an amber alert warning. Let's take into account where else we can expect showers to get heavy in the coming 24 hours. So there are heavy showers expected in most parts of the country. And when we talk about how monsoon has performed over the last 24 hours, let's take into account the monsoon performance, and we can expect monsoon, in fact, to pick up momentum, and that's expected from the 17th. Today, widespread showers are expected over Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, but they're going to get heavy from tomorrow, even in parts of Jammu and Kashmir, most parts of the northwest plains, whether it's Delhi as well. So monsoon will pick up momentum, and that's expected from the 17th till across the 19th. That's the entire weekend up to Monday, when heavy showers are expected. Let's look at the monsoon deficit right now, and here we can see that in the northern part of the country there's a 15% deficit, in the east a 10%, so this has increased. In central parts of the country there's a 7% deficit. In the southern part of the country the surplus has gone up to 16%. No change as far as the monsoon deficit is concerned, it stays at 5%. Now let's take into account which are the areas of concern, and we can see all these areas in the red is where monsoon is falling short, and we need monsoon to pick up, but as far as the temperatures are concerned, they're back up as far as the national capital and many parts of the country are concerned. Well, the monsoon deficit here, we can see many parts where over 50% as far as the shortage is concerned, and here the areas where is a little under 50%, but about 33% in Kerala, slight improvement there from 35% yesterday. The temperatures have gone up by 3 to 5 degrees in most parts of the country, especially in the northern part, but all that is set to change over the weekend. With that, we're slipping away a short break. Lots more coming up on the other side with Rishika. Stay with us.
Well, India's reported 38,949 new coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours. This is a slight dip from the cases that were reported in the previous 24 hours. India's active caseload currently stands at 4,30,422 active cases. So this, of course, is the latest numbers that we're tracking for you. A worrying sign for India's battle against COVID is that active cases went up by almost 2,000 on Thursday. While it may not seem like much, it's the highest ever rise in active cases in 2 months. In fact, since mid-May, active cases have risen only twice. And of course, this is only on one day. The 7-day average continues to dip, but any more frequent rises ahead could in fact change all of that. Now, the World Health Organization, remember, has also said that globally we are now witnessing the start of a third wave of the pandemic. This graphic that we're going to put out on our screens right now is from our world data, which shows this very clearly. All right, so this is of course third wave warning signs as far as India is concerned. And if you look at this, the R factor is rising, but vaccinations per day are falling. The increasing R factor, or the reproduction rate, the number of people who can be infected by one person who tests positive for COVID, particularly in states like Maharashtra and Kerala, have triggered concerns over the fact that this could fuel a national spike and trigger a third wave. Coupled with this, of course, is India's faltering vaccination rate. India is currently vaccinating an average of 33 lakh people on a daily basis, whereas in order to meet our target of vaccinating 60% of our population by year end, we need to vaccinate 88 lakh people per day. The World Health Organization chief, Dr. Tedros, has also warned that the world is in the early stages of a COVID-19 third wave amid a surge in cases of the Delta variant. Unfortunately, we're now in the early stages of a third wave, he said, adding that the Delta variant is now in more than 111 countries and is expected to be dominant worldwide if it isn't already. He also added that COVID is continuing to evolve, resulting in more transmissible variants of the virus. And we spoke with the head of epidemiology and communicable diseases at ICMR on the third wave, and Dr. Panda said that it is prudent to assume that there will be a third wave, perhaps towards the end of August, but he also said that it's not likely to be as intense as the second wave.
The third wave might start showing its head around August end.
You mean Delta Plus?
Delta Plus, actually, India has seen such a spread of it that, and it is very transmission efficient. So I am not expecting any more havoc, public health, from public health perspective.
And on to our special campaign, Vaccinate India, in partnership with Google. We're discussing questions that you may have about the coronavirus vaccine, questions that you may be Googling. And we have an expert doctor to answer some of those questions for you. Dr. R. Ebenezer, the head of critical care services, Apollo Speciality Hospitals, joins us from Vanagram. Thanks so much, doctor, for being with us. You know, ever since the Moderna vaccine has been granted emergency use authorization here in India, there are a lot of questions about the mRNA vaccine. How does the mRNA vaccine actually work?
See, there are two different types of vaccines which you should understand. One is the killed vaccine and the other one is the live vaccine. Okay. See, this mRNA vaccine is nothing but an mRNA is like a chemical messenger. It goes into the host cell and it gives a message to the cell to produce a certain type of protein. And once the protein is produced, in antagonism to that protein, an antibody is produced. So this is what happens when a coronavirus actually infects a human being. When the virus enters the human body, it just binds to a particular spike protein. I think all of you have heard about that term, spike protein. So this mRNA vaccine in turn readily gets into the cell, it produces a message, it guides the cell to produce a protein, and in turn an antibody is produced, so that when you are getting infected by coronavirus, you actually have neutralizing antibodies in your body which can prevent the infection from becoming very severe. So this is the basis. And now recently we have two good vaccines. One is the Covaxin and the Covishield agreed. Yes. But the Moderna vaccine is coming into the picture. This has been given emergency authorization. And studies across the US, the efficacy rate is quite excellent, around more than 90%, close to 92% efficacy is that. So if we do get this vaccine, it will be a boon, because what we need is aggressive vaccination. The only way we can escape out of a third wave is if we are able to vaccinate the Indian population as early as possible. So how many of our vaccines come into the market, it will be a great boom, so that we can vaccinate the population as early as possible.
Right. The other question that a lot of people have in mind, and there's a lot of confusion about how antibodies actually work. Does the presence of antibodies mean that a person is immune to COVID-19? How does it work?
See, here you have to think certain important things about immunity. See, immunity, there are two types of immunity. One is the T cell immunity, the other one is the B cell immunity. In the B cell immunity, antibodies are produced, but there is a silent immunity in human beings called as the T cell immunity, which is also happening. So even if your antibodies are not there, not to a particular level, still you might be immune to COVID for the second time. This you should understand. At the same time, we have noticed some patients, the antibodies have been at a high level, but still they have got the second COVID infection or the first infection after vaccination. So the antibody level per se alone does not tell that you are completely protected from getting infected from COVID again. So you have to be very, very careful. Don't go according to the levels. Look at the entire gamut. Yeah.
Right. But then, the other question is that after people get both shots of the vaccine, a lot of people want to understand whether they are actually protected and immune to COVID, and they go ahead and get their antibodies tested. And a lot of times people don't have, very high antibodies despite 2 doses of the vaccine. Does that mean that the vaccine is not working? How do we interpret those results?
See, we have looked at various studies, and even among healthcare professionals, there was one study conducted where they studied about the neutralizing antibodies after the second dose of vaccination. They found out in a small population there were no antibodies at all. I again repeat, the human body did not mount an antibody response at all. So we have to be very careful. Some people do not have antibodies at all. This is also prevalent when you get a COVID infection also. After COVID infection, you test your antibodies, some of them don't have antibodies at all. But remember, again I tell you, even if they don't have circulating neutralizing antibodies, they might have acquired T cell immunity. So there is no need to panic. But it is always better for us to have a lot of antibodies in the body. So at least we are comfortable, at least psychologically, that we have something to fight against COVID if at all we get infected. Yeah.
Right. Do you therefore, doctor, recommend that people should get their antibodies tested after vaccination?
See, as a routine policy, we don't ask our patients to get their antibody levels tested after getting themselves vaccinated 2 weeks after vaccination. It is not a routine policy, it is not a routine guideline, but many people do check their antibody levels, and they try to be a little bit happier when they see some antibody in the blood. Yeah.
All right, but no reason to be unhappy if you don't have those antibodies, because like doctor just explained, you still have T cell and B cell immunity against COVID. Thanks so much, doctor, for sparing your time and being with us on NDTV.
Thank you.
A dark perception and exposition of light, space and time reflects young photographer Rehan Vadra's passion for photography. He says that he was encouraged by his mother Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, who's been his harshest critic over the years.
that you're walking down a street and that street has messages.
Rehan Vadra's first photo exhibition, Dark Perception, is a different expression of his own life journey. Rehan lost an eye during a school cricket match in 2017. And the photo exhibition is an autobiographical journey into the perception of light and darkness and how it can be used to influence and exploit as well.
Most of that photography is actually done post 2017 to 2019 when I had injured my eye. So that's where a lot of black and white, a lot of darkness, it has a huge impact. It had an impact on my photography especially because, photography is about perception, is about seeing. And that, I think after 2017, my photography has become a lot more darker, a lot more black and white. I didn't used to shoot so much black and white.
Photography has been a childhood hobby, encouraged by his mother Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, who he says has been his harshest critic over the years. His grandfather, former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, also loved photography. And Rehan has begun to appreciate and study his work.
Digital photography, DSLRs, we have so much technology. But you see their generation, back then they had an analog camera. And I've myself just picked up an analog camera because I'm trying to teach myself how to shoot on film. And it's so different and it's so amazing how he did and his generation did photography, and such brilliant photography on such, when that sort of technology wasn't there. My mom helped me with selecting some of the works. She's my best and harshest critic. My uncle helped me with the concept. He helped me, I had this broad concept in my mind, he helped me streamline it, and then obviously I came up with the design, the photographs, and then I executed it.
The photographs ranged from wildlife shoots to his travel in London, where he is at present studying. For him, his grandmother, Congress President Sonia Gandhi's rare outdoor visit to see his work was a proud moment. Bureau Report, NDTV.